Hello and welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today I will be covering UFO sightings and alien encounters in the state of Alabama. Before we get into it, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment as it really helps my channel out and I really appreciate it. If you want to check out more of my paranormal videos, you can click the pop-up on the top right corner for a full playlist. So, without further ado, let's dive into it. Ghost, thing, or swamp gas. From the Birmingham News, December 14th, 1971. Call it a ghost story, or anything else you want to, but Frank Huff of Aliceville says it's real. Huff said he's viewed the weird spectacle on several occasions. The ghost light of Pickens County, that is. Huff says the light appears periodically, usually on moonless nights, at an isolated spot between Pickensville and Aliceville. It's a peculiar, bluish orb that appears to grow larger as it moves closer to the watcher. Then suddenly, Huff relates, the light vanishes. A number of other persons have seen the ghost light too. Some of them, chuckles Huff, got quite a start when the thing appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Huff says he doesn't know how long the light has been around, but he's known about it for many years. He doesn't believe in ghosts, Huff adds. A few folk have scoffed at the story of the thing, Huff reports, but after they watched the bluish blob floating silently toward them, they quit scoffing. One explanation of the light may be a mixture of oxygen and gases and other components commonly referred to as swamp gas. When certain conditions are present, their combination sometimes produces a sort of vapor that attracts any light in the area, but is visible only from a distance. At least, that is what a college science professor informed us. However, he added, the type of phenomenon described by Huff is rare. But swamp gas or not, the ghost light continues to float around down in Pickens County, Huff says. Folks around the area still can't get used to seeing it, he adds. You ought to come out and see it, invited Huff. An Auburn ghost? Regarding ghosts, we heard somewhere that a spook was once supposed to have inhabited a building at Auburn University. Anyone know such goings-on? Look to the East brought out opinions on bright object. From the Franklin County Times, March 13th, 1973. A bright object in the eastern sky Sunday night brought interest and inquiries from the public. Some said a star, others UFO, while one said a planet maybe. Whatever, it was there and appeared to glow from a real brilliance to a lesser light. At times, red and green lights could be seen. Whether an optical illusion or not, more than one person said they saw red and green near the bright object. One Russellville man, by sighting through a telescope, said the red and green lights showed up and looked like night lights airplanes use. Without telling what he saw, he let other members of his family look. Two saw the same thing, while one youngster said it looked like a Danish pastry, a round object with a swirl from the center to the edges in lights. Two saw a round object. One said the outer edge was lighted, while the other said there was also a center light. A Littleville woman said she saw the brilliant light which appeared through binoculars as a diamond with red and green lights also. She further said it appeared to move about, both up and down and to the side in quick moves. She thought the object was a UFO, which has been making the news in newspapers, including the Times, for several weeks. The man who used a telescope said the object was probably a planet. He further said that he seemed to recall that some planet was to be near Earth and more easily seen sometime this year. One Sunday night viewer said, "I just saw a bright star that twinkled." When asked if it reacted like other stars, she replied, "Well, no, it didn't." Meanwhile, telephones rang Sunday around 9 p.m. a lot with folks hearing from friends and relatives to look in the east. One man who did not see the object said Monday, "With all this about a star in the east, makes me think of another incident." He apparently was referring to the Bible's story when a star in the east led shepherds to the site where Christ was born. Alabamans report more strange sights. From the Birmingham News, September 21st, 1973. The burned spot at Carville, where a flying saucer was thought to have landed, might have been the results of a little fun by motorcyclists. Townspeople had told police they found an area that had been mysteriously burned, such as by a flying saucer. Later, a resident said it looked like where a motorcycle went round and round. News correspondent Boone Aiken went to Carville Thursday to check reports, one of which was that the landing area had been roped off. Policeman Olin Hammonds laughed. "That's where my daughter-in-law put up some rope and posted signs to keep trespassers from dumping garbage," he said. Nevertheless, Carville residents, along with those in Tallaladega across from the Tallapoosa River, insisted they had seen mysterious lights. They were among hundreds of residents over Alabama who reported seeing lights. The latest was at Tarrant, northeast of Birmingham, where residents reported strange lights Thursday night. Police and newspaper offices have been flooded with callers reporting strange, multicolored objects moving across the sky. Similar reports disturbed Georgia citizens several weeks ago and more recently in eastern Alabama, where several policemen said they saw unusual objects in the sky early one Sunday. Bill Arnold, dispatcher at the Tarrant City Police Department, said calls started coming in at 10:40 Thursday and continued until midnight. He said officers sent to investigate reported two objects lower and brighter than a star hovering over the city. They were round and moved back and forth, and then came together, the officer said. "As far as I know, they went away," Arnold said. "I guess people forgot about them and went to sleep." Police in Montgomery received several calls Wednesday night from residents of a development east of the city. Officers sent to the scene reported seeing an object with a white light and another changed colors from white to green to red. Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery said they found no unusual objects on their radar screens. Police Chief Ed Wright said he didn't see anything unusual in the night sky Wednesday night. "What I did see," he said, "were two stars. Two beautiful stars. I didn't observe them changing colors." More calls came Thursday night in Montgomery. Mrs. Charles Rogers said she and a group of neighbors saw three objects darting around. She said they were real bright and moved up and down and back and forth. The National Weather Service said they had no official explanation for the reports. Alabamans seeing more things in the sky. From the Birmingham News, September 11th, 1973. For 20 minutes Sunday night, Notasulga City Councilman W.F. Delbridge and Police Sergeant Mitt Giles watched two unidentified flying objects hovering over the town. "We watched them through binoculars," said Delbridge, "and what we saw definitely was not an airplane, nor some kind of gas. They were solid objects, round, and were multicolored and bright." The two said they watched the objects for more than 20 minutes and quit because we just got tired of it. The sighting followed a rash of similar reports during the early morning hours of darkness Sunday by lawmen in 5 southeast Alabama towns. Delbridge said the UFOs were round and appeared to be large. "I couldn't guess how far away they were, but it was a good way." Earlier, police in Lanett, Auburn, Carville, and Tuskegee gave similar reports. Sergeant Wayne Meadows of Lanett described it as a big light just easing its way through the sky. It would change colors. The sightings coincided with UFO reports in southern Georgia a few hours earlier. It was not the first mass sighting in Alabama. In February of this year, at least 125 people gathered at a junkyard in Lexington, in Lauderdale County, and saw several disc-shaped orange objects. During the first part of the year, There were as many as 500 sightings in the area. Henry Harvey, director of the Florence State University Observatory, says, "The people who saw something, there were too many responsible people there to pass it off as imagination. But what they saw, I do not know. I'm mystified." A Georgia astronomer suggested over the weekend that people are seeing space debris, the remains of satellites. "I don't agree with that," said Harvey. "Those things would travel rapidly and burn out as they re-entered the Earth's atmosphere." The recent sightings in Alabama have been more prolonged. An FSU student, Bill Rogers, went to Lexington 40 times during the sighting outbreak and saw objects on 9 occasions, he said. The shapes were either round or cigar-shaped, he said. "I followed a round, orange object for several miles one evening. It stopped once, then turned on a 90-degree angle and sped off, disappearing in a few seconds." He said one object had a row of lights that went out, but I could see the silhouette against the sky. I followed it from Muscle Shoals to Layton. In February, 125 people caused a veritable traffic jam in Lexington to see a UFO. They weren't disappointed. 2 showed up and caused a stir of excitement. "It couldn't have been imagination," said Rogers, because everyone there reacted at the same time. In January, the Reverend Gordon Ware was returning to Lexington with several members of his church youth group. They saw an object described as round and encircled with lights, hovering above them. "I was driving," said the minister, "but I saw something. I don't know what it was. At first I thought it might be a helicopter, but it wasn't." Mrs. Bob Springer had a more harrowing experience. On the night of February 20th, she said, an object, yellowish-orange and round, stayed above her car for more than 4 miles. "I would slow down. It would slow down. I would speed up. It would speed up. I was frantic. Then another one joined it as I came into Lexington. Several people saw it, including Pat Brown, one of the teachers." She said 2 of the objects passed near to each other and set off a flurry of small green sparks between them. "You have to see something like that to believe it," she said. "I've always been skeptical of such stories, but not anymore. They can go faster than anything you've ever seen. They can go slow, or they can stop." Rogers says, "You have to be suspicious of some of the reports, but 125 people can't be wrong." UFO capers continue. Saucer lands in field. From the Florence Time Tri-Cities Daily, February 18, 1973. The mysterious flying object that has become a familiar sight in the Shoals area still holds the #1 spot on the list of conversation subjects. The most recent of spectacular capers of the object is in the landing in the pasture of the Raleigh Nix home in Lexington. Phil Nix saw the object about 11:30 p.m., called his brother Mike, then his parents and sister. It was on the ground in the pasture, about 300 yards from the house, and so bright that it almost hurt your eyes to look at it, Phil said. He said that it appeared to be larger than a car but smaller than a bus, and that his family watched it for some time before it disappeared as though someone had turned a switch. Phil said that the landing near their home was the 4th sighting of the object for him and his brother. "We didn't believe it when we first heard the story about an object, maybe a UFO, being sighted in Lexington," Phil said. He said that one night when he was driving home, he thought a car was following closely because of a bright light in the rear-view mirror, but he discovered it to be the object, and no other car was near. An object that is apparently the same as the one seen at Lexington has been spotted in various other sections, including Wheeler Dam and Cherokee, but it has been spotted most frequently at the Lexington garbage dump. A Sheffield resident watched an object zigzag from the west to the east Friday night. She described it as being red and blue when it was first sighted, then appearing to be a bright light as it got further away. Most observers say the object goes a short distance, hovers, then moves on for a short distance just as though someone had given it a shove, like a balloon when you hit it upward with the palm of your hand. Among the persons who have reported seeing the object for the first time recently is Wilsie Mashburn, publisher of a weekly newspaper, Suburban News. In this week's edition of the newspaper, Mashburn writes, "Last week, I laughed when someone talked about the whatever it is and said that I would have to see it to believe it. Well, Friday night of last week, I quit laughing, for we were riding down the road, almost to Peppertown, when lo and behold, there it was in living color." He also says, "Everybody has had their own idea of what the object is, and after seeing it myself, I don't agree with any of them, especially the part about it being an airplane or helicopter. But I still will not make any comments on what I think it is for the simple reason that I haven't the faintest idea. Most people have concluded that the object is nothing to be feared, and some have made some jokes about it. A couple of students have decided it might be that other planets are bringing their garbage to Earth for disposal. Their clever cartoon appears on today's commentary page." Anniston man reports UFO near Pell City. From the Anniston Star, October 24th, 1970. A local resident reports sighting an unidentified flying object between Pell City and Leeds Thursday afternoon. Wesley J. Ponder of Acker Electric Company said he was on I-20 traveling west to Birmingham with his wife and 14-year-old daughter just before sundown when his wife spotted the first of two cylindrical objects. The first object was traveling from the east, Ponder said, and was moving at about the height and speed of a low-flying airplane. Ponder said the object was cylindrical with flat ends, whitish, and didn't glow. It was white, not metallic, he said. It had a definite shape and gave the unmistakable impression of solidity, he said. The second object, identical to the first, except that it appeared to have a long trail such as an airplane would give off, appeared from the west, Ponder said. It changed course slightly to meet the first one, and the two met head-on, Ponder said. My wife said, "It looks like they're going to make a battle, doesn't it?" said Ponder, and I answered, "It certainly does." But when the two met head-on, the one coming from the west disappeared. Just that sudden, too, Ponder said. The other didn't change appearance, speed, elevation, or anything. It continued on in a westerly direction until it disappeared in the distance over Birmingham, Ponder said. I had plenty of time to observe this thing because I watched it for 10 minutes. Assuming that the object was at the height of a low-flying airplane, 2,000 to 4,000 feet, Ponder estimates, he believes it was about half the size of a private single-engine aircraft. He never has seen an unidentified flying object before. I'd never compare it to a flying saucer, he said. The way people describe them, they change direction suddenly. This didn't change direction or anything. Jim Ray of Anniston's FAA office said he has received no reports of unidentified flying objects lately, although he has received many in the past. He said if the objects described showed up on radar, they probably would not have been noticed, because air traffic is heavy between Pell City and Leeds, and radar operators, if they had noticed the objects on their screens, probably would have considered them low-flying aircraft, not under their control, and just flying through the area. Flying saucers? Some state residents are convinced of it. From the Nashville Banner, May 17, 1973. Lexington, Alabama. Since January, hundreds of people have lined the roads leading into this small city just across the Tennessee-Alabama border to see them. See what? Flying saucers, UFOs, whatever they want to call it. The strange lights are still being seen as recently as last week. Interest has died down some now, said Wilsie Mashburn, publisher of the Lexington Suburban News, a local weekly. But there for a while, they were really talking it up. There was some concern because people didn't begin going to Lexington to see the strange sight. Mashburn further stirred the interest when he ran pictures of a lighted object in the sky in his newspaper in February. I was about 5 miles out of town, and it was just getting dusky dark when I saw the lights, Mashburn recalled. I almost ran over myself getting my camera. I got one photo of the lights in the sky that were stationary. Then it began to move. As word of the strange lights moving through the night sky spread, motorists as far away as Nashville have come to see it. Mashburn said the lighted object was still when he first saw it and remained motionless long enough for a time exposure. Then it began to move. The intriguing thing about the mysterious lights is that the sightings have not just been isolated cases, but in fact, hundreds of reports have verified the sightings. And those who have seen the lights all give the same description of the objects. Stanley Ingram, a Lewisburg insurance agent and columnist for the Pulaski Citizen, is carrying out a continuing investigation of the lights in the South Tennessee and North Alabama area. He has interviewed more than 25 people on tape who have sighted the lights, and there are few differences in their descriptions. I really became interested after the pictures appeared in the Lexington paper, he said. I've been studying about flying saucers since I read the first book on them in 1949. Back in February, Ingram and 2 other men went to a cotton field near Lexington where they set up a telescope. Ingram detailed the eerie happenings of the cold, clear night in a column later. There was no moon and no yard lights nearby, he wrote. It was perfect for viewing the skies. After setting up his telescope, Ingram reported, out of the southwest and low over the horizon came a white flashing light, similar to a strobe light and very intense or strong. I saw the light in the telescope and started tracking. Across the front direction of travel, there were green, white, and red lights in that order, he wrote. The white flashing light was in the center and appeared to be larger than the other lights extending slightly below and protruding slightly in front. We could see no outline of the craft itself. There was absolutely no sound. The description is similar to those given by others who have seen the lights in the area. The sightings are not confined to a small area, but in the Lexington, Sheffield, Cherokee, Rogersville, Anderson, and Wheeler Dam areas in Alabama. Sightings have also been reported in the Pulaski, Lawrenceburg, and Minor Hill area of Tennessee. Another witness to the strange lights is Mrs. Lara Washin, news editor of the Pulaski Citizen. This was on April 4th, about 7:05 p.m., she said. A lady companion and I were near Lexington when I saw the lights. I stopped the car and we got out. As we watched the lights, I asked her to flash the car lights off and on. Mrs. Washin continued. When she flashed them the third time, the light in the sky disappeared as fast as a snap of your fingers. Mrs. Washin said the object was moving in a horizontal line when they saw it. It was round and glowing, and there was no sound at all, she said. There have been 2 distinct types of objects sighted. The one Ingram described had several lights, while the one Mrs. Washin saw has been described by other people in the area as a round glowing ball. Mrs. Bob Springer, Grassy, Alabama, reported following the object in her car one night with her 2 sons. Mike Els Lexington, a high school student, has reported seeing the strange object several times. I don't think this is mass hysteria, said Mrs. Washin. The night we saw it, we had time to stand there and discuss it. I'm not sure what it was, but I do know what I saw. The most popular spot for viewing the strange lights is the Lexington City Dump. This is where the crowds have gathered on clear nights to watch the lights move across the sky. Strangely enough, the same type of sightings have been made at a dump site near St. Louis, Missouri. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch recently carried photos of lights in the night sky with the description given by a Missouri family who took the photos. The descriptions from that area fit those given by Lexington area residents. Ingram said there was one object that seemed to be on a time schedule. We saw it regularly about 10:10 p.m. for about 2 weeks, he said. We began calling it the 10:10. South of Lewisburg, Ingram said the most sightings have been along Interstate 65. Along the interstate seems to be a favorite path for them, he said. While few people have been close enough to actually get a detailed description, Ingram has put together enough information from interviews and what he has seen himself to make a drawing of what the object probably looks like, he said. 2 people described it as being a dull aluminum color, roughly rectangular in shape, and the lights Ingram had seen. The objects have been described as cigar-shaped by those who could see an outline. Probably the most colorful description, however, was given by a Liberty Hill man who said he could see what appeared to be windows in the object. It looked like a flying house trailer, he said. While the lights have not been identified to anyone's satisfaction here, the crowds gathering at Lexington are decreasing in size except for avid UFO followers. The ones I've seen, said Ingram, have nothing about them to indicate that they are our aircraft. The government has tried to explain it away as being swamp gas or other things, but I'm not ready to accept that, he said. And while the Lexington area residents still look up at the night skies frequently, the concern has lessened because the strange lights have been seen with so much regularity for the past 4 months. Fishermen cite UFOs. From the Montgomery Journal, September 17, 1973. Jerry Sanders was out fishing about 5:30 a.m. Saturday when he thought he saw a Skylab shooting across the sky. But the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville reports that the manned satellite station was visible in Alabama skies at 6:41 p.m. that day, more than 12 hours later. It was too fast to be a jet, Sanders said. He made the sighting while fishing at a pond south of Leadahachie and says the object was moving eastwards. Ed Bruner, a Montgomery florist, reported he was fishing at Lake Jordan when he saw a lit object hover over the boat. Bruner said he saw a similar object again Friday night when one followed his boat about 10 miles, making no noise. After Bruner and his friend got out of their boat and into a car, 4 UFOs began following directly overhead the car. The objects were described as the size of washtubs with red blinking lights. Bruner, a World War II pilot, said they were not conventional aircraft. Interest in UFOs picks up after sightings in Alabama. From the Montgomery Advertiser, September 12, 1973. With red, green, and white lights blinking on and off, a large, round object hovered over a cemetery in Carville early Friday morning. It didn't make a sound and was high up in the air, said Police Chief Ray Sides. But we know it wasn't an airplane, and after a while it began moving across the town real slow. Then suddenly it just streaked away into the sky and disappeared. What happened in Carville is something that is happening in many other communities both in and out of Alabama, according to reports. Unidentified flying objects are being reported by dozens of witnesses, many of them law enforcement officials and other reputable residents. But none of them have any explanation as to what it is they have seen, and all of them say, "We want to find out." Sides said the Carville incident was reported by police officer Billy Clayton, who said the object was stationary, but would suddenly move and then stop, always over the cemetery. At 4 a.m. Saturday, 6 different police departments in Auburn, Tuskegee, Tallahassee, and other areas saw a large, round object with green blinking lights that was moving too fast to be an airplane. Although it was moving very fast, it was joined by another object with a red light, says Auburn Police Dispatcher Keith Broach. Another officer said he saw it stop, then shoot across the sky. Other police departments in his area reported seeing a similar sight, and most of the other policemen thought it resembled an airplane in a way, but yet it was going too fast for that. Notasulga Police Chief Mid Giles said the object he saw Saturday morning was covered with blue, green, white, and red lights and swayed as it moved back and forth. It was as big as a good-sized automobile. It wasn't making any noise at all. It wasn't moving very fast, but then it just took off. Like other witnesses, he said it seemed to sit in one spot before it jetted away. We still look for him. We sort of keep an eye open to see some more, he said. Saturday and Sunday, a couple of people called me up at home, said Bill Thornton, Civil Defense Coordinator for Lee County, but none had anything we could confirm. The National Weather Service in Montgomery ruled out any possibility that the UFOs could be weather balloons because these are generally released during the late afternoon and explode within a 2-hour period. Auburn asked to track Carville flying saucer. From the Birmingham News, September 20th, 1973. Carville authorities have asked chemists from Auburn to study an area where residents say an unidentified flying object may have landed several days ago. Townspeople told police Wednesday that they had found an area of grass that had been mysteriously burned. It follows more reports of aerial sightings by police here, as well as Tallaladega Wednesday night. Carville police officer Gary Clayton said he and several other people saw a large, disc-shaped object. It's the 4th time I've seen something in the past few weeks, he said. He and his wife Pam reported seeing an object several nights ago that hovered about 350 yards from the ground near this Elmore County town. It gives you sort of an eerie feeling, he said. It upsets my wife very much. He described it as being about the size of a car, with a red light on one side, a green one on the other, and a white one in the middle. It made a slight ringing noise, he said, like bells jingling. I really feel sort of foolish telling anyone about it, but we know what we saw and heard. Then the thing just took off without any noticeable sound and disappeared. And so did me and my wife. We lit out down the road for home. A number of police officers in East Central Alabama have reported seeing UFOs in recent weeks, and neither the Air Force nor the U.S. Weather Service can venture an opinion. The Weather Service office in Birmingham did say the objects were not weather balloons. I'm willing to bet my paycheck it wasn't a helicopter either, said Clayton. They make plenty of noise, and no helicopter can move like this. The burned area is located near a gravel pit just outside the Carville town limits and is in the vicinity where Officer Clayton and his wife saw the object. One resident, David Hook, told police he was going to shoot the next one that comes close. I told him that that's the thing to do, said Clayton. Let's put one of these things on the ground and see what it is. Police in Notasulga, Tuskegee, Tallahassee, Auburn, and Lanett have made reports of sightings within recent weeks. It's getting sort of old down here, said Clayton, but it gives you a creepy feeling. UFO sightings reported in Tallaladega over the weekend. From the Daily Home, March 31st, 1976. Whatever those mysterious glowing objects in the sky are, a number of area residents say they were back over Tallaladega during the weekend. Residents of West End reportedly cited what was described as a round, gray object moving slowly at treetop level early Saturday evening. And according to several sources, 2 patrolmen on duty also reported that sighting, but Police Chief Joe Sparks said he preferred not to comment on the alleged incident, even though a number of people monitoring their scanners claimed they heard the officer's verbal report. At least one other resident spotted a similar object on the south side of town Sunday night, emphasizing and telling that she had not been imbibing. Sparks speculated that what was allegedly seen over Tallaladega Saturday and Sunday was probably the same thing which triggered another report of a UFO sighting. In that incident, glowing objects seen by 2 women driving from Gadsden to Tallaladega were explained as aerial flares for night photography. Sparks acknowledged that there had been several calls to his department concerning the local sightings, but he had not attempted to determine the actual cause, under the assumption that the explanation would be similar. A spokesman in the Northern Division office of the Sheriff's Department said he could not remember any UFO reports made during the weekend, but had there been, the calls would likely have just been ignored. In the wake of several recent sightings in the Gadsden area, the official explanation for those glowing and pulsating objects overhead was given as tests at the Redstone Arsenal at Huntsville. According to one newspaper account, gases released during the testing could take on different colors and shapes depending on the circumstances. But here's how it looked from the ground to several startled and at least 3 terrified observers. The children of Faria Parker of 510 Lawson Street were white as cotton on reaching the safety of their home after what they said was a large, smoky blue object hovering over them as they played in the yard. 5-year-old John, who first sighted the pancake-shaped object which approached the playing youngsters from the cover of a nearby tree, was also first to react, according to the mother. After alerting brothers Timothy, 7, and Michael, 10, he dashed inside and locked the door on them. Mrs. Parker, who was tending to an infant daughter, hearing the commotion from the other boys pounding on the door, let them in. They were at first so frightened, she said, none of them would venture back outside. But when one of them agreed to join her, she saw it too. It looked like it was coming down in the backyard, she said. At this point, Michael and Timothy said the object extended rods, like it was going to land. They also insisted it had a door which opened and flashed blue lights, as if it were taking photographs. When the object began to move away, blinking red and white lights rimming its edge, it just disappeared, said Mrs. Parker. A few minutes later, I saw it again, but it was way over there, she said, pointing to the southwest. Mrs. Parker said her children were not given to vivid imaginations, and she believed them completely since she had seen it herself. Several Howard Street residents also called the Daily Home about the Saturday sighting, but none gave their names. What was seen by Jackie Hallmark around 9 p.m. Sunday as she was driving on Cherry Street near Lancaster was described as an oblong-shaped object pulsating blue in color, which shaded to bright orange at one end. Mrs. Hallmark, a Daily Home employee, said the strange object moved across the street, then appeared to just disintegrate. But the manner in which it vanished was the most puzzling part of the incident, according to the observer. The object began to disappear from one end until it was entirely gone. It was like it was being covered up by something, she said. To Mrs. Hallmark, the object appeared to be not very large and moving at treetop level. Of course, it could have been fireworks or something else, she laughed, but I've never seen anything like it before, she added. The Parker family said the same thing. The only thing I've ever seen like it before was on television, the youthful sighters chorused. Another Daily Home employee, Billy Mowry, said that after getting a call from one very excited Howard Street resident Saturday evening, she also sighted something, but it was to the southeast and was too far away to be distinguishable. As of press time Monday, it had not been determined whether any testing had been conducted in Huntsville, which could explain the phenomena of the 2 past nights. Large, bright UFO seen near base. From the Alabama Journal, February 19, 1980. An unidentified flying object was reported hovering near Maxwell Air Force Base around midnight Sunday by a base security guard and 3 other observers. Security Sergeant James Hall and other persons described the object as one large, bright light with flashes of red and blue. Hall said he first saw the light around 11:40 p.m. Sunday, and it remained visible until around 1:45 a.m. Monday. The light was moving kind of erratically in the sky north of the base, Hall said. He said he listened for sounds, explaining, I wanted to be sure it wasn't an airplane. He said there were no sounds. The light was bobbing up and down diagonally, east to west, he said. At times it was slow and at other times fast, Hall added. John Bolender of Maxwell Flight Control was manning the radar screen at the time. He began getting phone calls from people who said they had spotted the light. When they first called, I had just gotten on duty at 12 midnight. Between 2 and 2:30, I observed a target about 2 miles west of Maxwell, moving northwest toward the Prattville Airport on the radar screen. Then I watched it as far as about 1 mile south of the Prattville Airport, and then I lost radar contact. Bolander described the movement on the radar screen as about 115 miles per hour, what a helicopter would look like on radar. Approach lights were on at the Prattville Airport, but nobody was there to confirm a sighting, an airport spokesman said. I thought my wife was going to faint. UFOs reported sighted over the Wiregrass. From the Dothan Progress, March 4th, 1981. This is a composite of stories from several Houston County residents who claim they have seen a UFO. Each of the witnesses asked not to be identified for fear of the teasing they might receive from friends and associates due to disputed opinions concerning the existence of UFOs. The nights are not always hot and muggy when these objects appear, but often this is the case. They are usually seen at night in this part of the world, but not always. They are often accompanied by a loud whirring sound, but exceptions do exist. UFOs follow no rules. The afternoon this sighting occurred was calm and cool with a slight breeze blowing from the south. The countryside was quiet but for the sounds of water in the small pond lapping at the bank. The sun glowed brightly above the earth in a brilliant cloudless sky. The young married couple had gathered a picnic lunch and headed for their favorite spot to get away from all their problems and to just relax together for a few hours. Other than a few annoying ants that invariably invade a picnic site, the afternoon had gone wonderfully. As the day wore on and the reality that they had to go back and face the world set in, the two collected their belongings and began to pack them into the car when something at treetop level caught his eye. By the time he looked around, the object had gone, and it was dismissed as being just a bird. As their small car wound down the narrow dirt road, something appeared just off the passenger side of the car. The dark object drew the glance of the young woman, and she sat mystified and stared. Her husband noticed her trance-like state and gave her a gentle nudge to snap her out of it. She quickly turned her head and looked at him with a distant, horrified look in her eyes. He questioned her about her obvious fright, but received no answers. She only stared out the window. Finally, he stopped the car to find out just what the problem was. When he leaned over to speak to his wife, he saw the object hovering a few yards from the car. I was stunned, he said, as he remembered the day. It was like nothing I had ever seen. I remember saying to my wife, "It's really a UFO." Suddenly, I was in a trance just as much as she was. He put the car back in gear and sped down the road much faster than was safe. The UFO kept up with the car seemingly effortlessly. "The faster we went, the faster it went," said the young woman. But the most amazing thing to me was that the thing didn't make any noise at all. It just kind of hovered there without any sound. When the car was still about 1 mile from the end of the road, the UFO sped ahead and disappeared around the bend. The couple sighed a collective sigh of relief, but when they rounded the last curve before reaching the main road, there sat the UFO hovering no more than 2 feet off the ground. "We thought that thing had finally decided to leave us alone," explained the man, "but when we rounded that turn, there it sat. I thought my wife was going to faint. She just turned so pale." The couple sat and stared at the UFO for about 3 or 4 minutes before it slowly lifted to treetop level and shot off directly over the car and vanished. I've always heard tales about so-called UFOs, but I never really believed any of them, the woman said as she shook her head, still not quite believing it had happened. The thing that really amazed me was the fact that this thing didn't glow. It didn't have any red or green lights, and like my wife said, it didn't make any noise, he said. People are always telling these stories, and they always sound the same, but the only resemblance this UFO had to others I've heard stories about was the shape. It was kind of saucer-shaped with a little dome on top. When the couple returned to town, they decided not to tell anyone about what they had seen for fear of the remarks people might make. However, the next day at work, the young man overheard some of his coworkers talking about seeing a UFO on their way back from a fishing trip. Their sighting occurred less than 2 miles from the site of the first sighting. Stories from all those who saw the unidentified flying object are fairly consistent, with only a couple of minute differences. Perhaps the most amazing consistency is the feeling each witness encountered while the UFO was in close proximity to their vehicle. Each felt as though he were being carefully examined and watched. Were they being watched? Are we all being watched? Mysterious fireball puzzles authorities. From the Times Tri-City Daily, June 3, 1981. Nobody knows what it was, and some aren't even guessing. Eyewitnesses said a ball of fire that looked like a burning airplane or helicopter crossed Highway 20 about 8 miles north of Florence during a thunderstorm Tuesday afternoon. Officials turned out en masse in search for the wreckage of an airplane, but called off the search about 7:30 p.m. because nothing, other than about 8 eyewitnesses' accounts, could be found. A civil air patrol plane and a crop duster crisscrossed the area in search of a downed plane, while other men trampled through the brush on foot. An ambulance waited while rescue squad members and volunteers speculated on what could have happened. W.C. Kilpatrick was headed north about 3:30 p.m. when he saw the mysterious ball of fire. It was on fire and it was smoking, and it looked like an airplane, Kilpatrick said. It was during that first thunderstorm, and it went just over the treetops, he said. C.G. Stacy was riding south when he said he saw the ball of fire. I don't believe in UFOs, but it was something, Stacy said. I saw a big ball of fire, and then a parachute came out. Yes, sir, I saw a big parachute, he said. But Kilpatrick said he did not see a parachute. Civil Defense Director George Magnum said Scott Air Force Base in Illinois would be contacted about the reports. The Air Force Base has a list of all missing planes in the United States, and Magnum said that list would be checked to see if it could be linked to this incident. Florence Fire Chief Audie Hodges said he wouldn't even attempt to make a guess as to what the eyewitnesses saw. I feel reasonably sure that with the amount of area we covered and the people we used, that there would have been some evidence of broken trees or wreckage, he said. Hodges said he was certain of only one thing, and that was that the eyewitnesses did see something. But I don't know what. I wouldn't even commence to make a guess, but I don't think a plane crashed. Officials thought maybe lightning struck one of the large power poles that lined the road, but Tennessee Valley Authority officials said no power lines were down anywhere in Lauderdale County. Ball lightning, which seems to appear as balls of fire, has also been mentioned as a possibility. But as of now, nobody knows. Hodges said the local rescue officials have had their share of mysteries lately, since a case for 17 women at a local manufacturing company becoming ill Friday has still not been determined. Isn't that something, he said. UFO Reporting Center is baffled by balls of fire. From the Birmingham News, June 11, 1981. A National UFO Reporting Center official says he gets occasional reports of balls of light similar to those spotted by Florence residents earlier this month, but has no real explanation as to their identity. Robert Gribble, a staff member at the private research organization in Seattle, Washington, told the Birmingham News Wednesday the center has received few unidentified flying object reports from Alabama recently. Speculation as to what the burning, descending object was, spotted by 2 Florence men June 2nd, ranged from a crashing crop duster airplane to a weather satellite to a meteor to a ball of lightning. It looked like a tumbling ball of fire. When the fire went out, a parachute appeared to come out. Then there was the sound of an explosion, C.G. Stacy of Florence said. According to published accounts, balls of lightning is a phenomenon that has received little credibility in the scientific community until recent years. They are said to last for some time, floating through the air like soap bubbles. They have been described as bluish-white or reddish globes ranging in size from grapes to basketballs. The object spotted by Stacy and city sanitation driver W.C. Kilpatrick reportedly went under a high-tension power line running parallel with the highway west of Florence. Gribble said balls of lightning are not a common occurrence. They occur during a thunderstorm and occasionally explode. The UFO spotted near Florence was seen as a thunderstorm was building. Stacy reported hearing an explosion. After news of this sighting, AEA Espoo District 1 Director Shirley Geen of Waterloo told the news she saw a UFO exactly 1 week before the June 2nd report. Mrs. Geen said the object she saw also gave the impression of being on fire. Her sighting, unlike the afternoon sighting of the two men, was made at 11 p.m. The object the men saw was headed east. The one she saw was headed west at a 45-degree descent to below the treetops. She also thought the big and real high object was a helicopter or airplane on fire. It appeared to be stationary over the Tennessee Valley Authority Reservation and Muscle Shoals before it began moving, she said. Her sighting was from near Bradshaw High School on the opposite side of Florence from where Stacy and Kilpatrick made their sighting. The UFO was reddish pink with a lighter shade of red inside a cylinder area, she said. The object seen by the men appeared to be between them. The one Mrs. Geen reported was south of her. Lauderdale County Highway Department Secretary Sissy Benson spotted a UFO a year ago in the general direction of Mrs. Geen's sighting. I sat on my porch and watched it for 30 minutes with 16 power binoculars, Mrs. Benson said. The UFO stayed in a stationary position about 2,000 feet high in a direction from her apartment that could put it over TVA's Wilson Dam hydroelectric plant on the Tennessee River south of Florence. When it moved, it went left, right, up and down, she said. It was probably 50 feet in diameter, flat on the top and dome-shaped with a red light on the bottom that would dim. Around the edges were rectangular windows, she said. There was absolutely no noise. Traffic sounds did not interfere with the night sighting, she said. I had the distinct feeling it was watching me too. Then it took off all of a sudden, said Mrs. Benson, who described herself as a former UFO skeptic. Both women said they had not reported these sightings until the June 2nd sightings. Gribble said the UFO Reporting Center has had only 2 prior UFO reports from Alabama this year. The first, on January 11th, near Saraland, north of Mobile, was an unknown object with 2 large, bright white lights moving across the sky at a high rate of speed, he said. The second, on April 13th, was reportedly seen traveling in straight-line flight on a horizontal plane near Cowarts in Houston County, Gribble said. The Southeast has traditionally had fewer reported UFO sightings than other areas of the nation, he said. In 1973, the Southeast had a massive surge of UFO reports, particularly between September 1st and December 31st in all the southeastern states. That was probably the largest number reported for one area at one time in the U.S. in the 26 years we've been investigating, Gribble said. Right now, things are fairly quiet all over. In January, February, and March, we had a lot of activity. Then it slacked off till we hit rock bottom, he said. The center is used by scientists and laymen as a national data gathering center for research projects. Decatur man believes in UFOs after sighting. From the Huntsville Times, October 15, 1981. Before Wednesday night, Jeff Widener believed UFOs were possible, but after seeing an unidentified flying object, he is now convinced such spacecrafts exist. Widener of 1804 7th Street, Southeast Decatur, said he was returning from Huntsville about 9 p.m. Wednesday when he noticed a low-flying object drift toward Alabama 20, about a mile east of here. It was the size of a football field and hovered about 100 or 200 yards over me, he said. Widener, 22, manager of a Hartzell fast food restaurant, said he watched as the object slowly passed in front of him, from right to left, turn, and kind of tilt backward. I had slowed down to about 15 miles per hour and drove underneath, he said. I drove a few more yards and started to pull off the road and looked back, and it was gone. Widener said the egg-shaped object had many white lights and one bright orange light at the end of a pole in the center. He saw no green or red lights as on airplanes. It appeared to have thrusters or something across the bottom, he said, but I was right beneath it and couldn't hear a thing. Widener said he didn't see any kind of a tail on the object, which hovered for about 15 seconds before it disappeared. I couldn't see anything made of glass at all, he added. Widener said he was surprised by the object. It didn't cross your mind you are going to see something like that, he said. At first I assumed it was an airplane, he said, but it was getting lower and lower and finally stopped over me. All the lights were bright, he said. All were regular lights and one was orange. Widener said he had passed a van, but I never saw him again. There were no other vehicles on the highway at the time, he said. Widener did not report the incident, but when he returned home, he told his wife, Gwen. Mrs. Widener said, I called the police to see if anyone else reported it. After police advised patrol officers to be on the watch for such an object, an anonymous telephone caller reported seeing an object in southwest Decatur, but police discounted that call. I'm positive it wasn't an airplane, Widener said. I always thought UFOs were possible, he said. I'm a believer now. Mysterious craft sighted here. From the Baldwin Times, February 14th, 1983. It made a low humming noise. 3 people have confirmed that. It had a series of blue lights towards the top of its structure, and one brilliant, piercing white light at its very top pointed to the heavens. Again, 3 people have confirmed that. But what is not certain is what it was. What occurred Wednesday night in Stapleton will probably remain a mystery forever to the people who witnessed the unusual event. We were out in the schoolyard about 7:30 p.m. when over in the west, we saw a brilliant light that looked like it was stationary, a little above the trees, said Vivian White of Stapleton. Children near the Methodist church saw the saucer-like craft too, and were shouting that it was a spaceship, she added. Mrs. White said that she stood with her husband Nolan and daughters Joanne and Susan and watched the light for about 10 minutes as it drew closer to the schoolyard. The craft had blue lights around it, she said, with one bright white spotlight that angled up toward the sky. It had a low humming noise, like a jet way up in the atmosphere, she said, adding that when she first saw the lights, she thought the craft was a helicopter. When it got over us, I knew it wasn't a helicopter. She said she was scared when she first saw the object. The first thing I thought about was a star that fell down from heaven, she recalled. It looked kind of awesome. Mrs. White's father, I.B. Bird, said it was something I couldn't explain. It was definitely not an airplane, but I thought maybe later it was. He explained that his son Clayton went out to his car to get something when he called him outside. Both the father and son recalled that the object came from the west over the treetops, and it had a circle of rotating blue lights around the top with a bright light on top. When it got about 150 yards away from the house and was about 50 to 60 feet above the ground, both birds said the object appeared to become stationary for several minutes before the lights on the top went out and a light that illuminated a panel beneath the craft came on. Clayton said the object then went straight up into the air about 2,000 feet and continued on slowly and horizontally toward the northeast. "I never saw nothing like that before," he said. "If it had been me that saw it, I wouldn't say nothing to nobody. But my sister came up the next day and said she saw it." He said the object's noise did not sound like an aircraft or helicopter engine. Clayton says he has received digs from people after describing the experience. "I had not been drinking anything," he said. Charles Beard, the flight clearance supervisor at Pensacola Naval Air Station, said that there were U.S. Navy aircraft flying on Wednesday night. "But we don't have anything that wouldn't make a lot of noise," Beard said. He explained that Navy aircraft would not have blue lights, but do have white sequence flashing lights on top, a red sequence beacon on the left wing, and a green sequence beacon on the right wing. A spokeswoman inside the Mobile Municipal Airport Control Tower said that she did not know of any radar log entries regarding a craft described by the Stapleton residents. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it. What state should I cover next? Let me know in the comments below. If you have your own scary story or close encounter to share, you can either send it in the comments, post on my subreddit, r/ihaveaspookystory, or send it to my Gmail, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the shadows bite.